the single greatest thing you can do towards a peaceful world is not exploit animals. And it's the most effective, most potent way for most people, because most of us are not in positions of power in the global economy, where we're not heads of state or CEOs of mega corporations. And even for those folks, I still think there's a lot of good if they did make that change in their personal lives. And the reason I say this is because every life matters. Every animal killed has knock-on effects from the life that itself that was taken, but then all the negative energy involved in unnecessarily killing another creature to feast on its flesh and wear its skins has those knock-on effects. I think that negative energy, and I hate to all right off the bat just be speculative, but I think that negative energy has some effect. We internalize the idea that might makes right on this scale, and it bubbles up in society. I know human beings operate on hierarchies already, so in a sense we are in a way constantly playing a game of domination and submission in social spheres. But let's leave the animals out of it, because that habituates us to exerting power over those who are weaker than us, whether or not we need to or not. So once we get used to that kind of power structure, I think it perpetuates itself in all circles of human. It could be a dog play dog world, but we are currently, I think, very self-aware that of what we do, even if it's on an intrinsic level, and seeing ourselves do evil makes it so normal and so comfortable to engage in that sphere of other animals that it spirals out into how we treat each other. So definitely being pro-animal freedoms and rights, including human beings, means that, yeah, we would be promoting nonviolence and compassion, and making that cultural shift to more sustainable, ethical consumption and living behaviors. From the top down, really, the cause of most conflict is over resources. So land, water, and space, whatever, greatly is reduced by a plant-based diet, which is one aspect of veganism. Drastically reduces the amount of land we would need to grow crops to get the same amount of calories, and also drastically reduces the amount of water we would use. And as far as resources, clean air or areas with better environments, we'll have less deforestation, which, because animal agriculture is like the leading cause of deforestation right now. So cleaner air, stuff like that. There's so many environmental benefits that I could see leading to reduction in conflict in terms of wars and nation states. We could also imagine that there would be a change in how global policy and how nations cooperate, because if you had a population of people who cared deeply about each other, the other animals and the environment, that would bubble up to in some way necessarily the people who we vote into power. And I'm talking about this on a global scale. And those individuals, if those individuals are all empathetic, systems thinkers, and they cooperate, they can collaborate towards a more peaceful world in ways that they're very operating on a very zero sum paradigm, and very antagonistic. So those are kind of the high level, the top level of changes that happen. But back to if we drill down to the person, and we could start with the environment, which I've already touched on, resource conservation, but there's also uh, animal welfare, like the well-being of the animals on the world. I consider that as a one of the metrics for how peaceful or non-peaceful a world do we live in. It's not just how are the human beings doing, it's how is everyone doing. So just by default, if we stop exploiting hundreds of billions of creatures a year, by default, the world is just more peaceful. And that change is very easy to achieve because easy in the sense that all it takes is for people to not do something that they're doing right now, which is wear leather and wool and eat meat, which are quite easy things to not do on an individual level, but have drastically positive effects on the macro. Obviously, there's also the health benefits. There are the economic benefits because people, besides the environment and all that, there is also that kind of tag on effect of the economy, where yeah, and I could see switching to plant-based diets actually lead into greater stimulation of the economy, just because there's a lot more people can get involved in that sense. Not everyone wants to slot themselves into the slaughterhouse pipeline, factory farm industry or whatever. Most I personally I like to garden. I like to grow food. If the meat the $1 billion meat industries were to go bankrupt and disappear tomorrow, I think the opportunities for people like me who may actually want to go into farming would greatly and maybe actually will just be the same farmers who are already raising cattle who end up transitioning, but I highly doubt it. So I think there will be a lot of new innovation and new industries just spun up around the plant-based lifestyles that will actually be a good thing for the economies that go in that direction. This is also a very, I guess, obvious one, but veganism or any pro-animal stance embodies just principles of nonviolence. So that ethos can influence just the broader social attitudes and encourage us to coexist more peacefully, just because of by nature just having respect for life and in general having people if people had a shared respect for life, that just goes a long way in how we treat each other, not just the other beings. And I guess this is also another thing implied by switching to plant-based diets, but that there would be greater global food security, because it's more efficient to grow crops directly for human beings to eat than to grow them for animals to eat and then eat the animals. So that chain, we cut out that uh, middleman. I don't know what middle animal in the food chain, and go directly to the human being. Everything becomes more efficient. So there's just uh, it's just a clearer, simpler process for governments to plan around agricultural production and their population's needs. So that's a huge one too. And if I don't, obviously I don't think if everyone went vegan tomorrow, all the wars in the world will stop and everyone will be holding hands. But very close to it, honestly. I don't think it's a far-fetched thought because veganism, and have to restate this, is not about what you eat. It's about how you feel towards other creatures and how you treat them, like in your day-to-day life. What the actions you take in your day-to-day life say about your regard for the lives of other creatures, not just yourself. Carnist, which is people who, although they have the chance to be plant-based or opportunity, just don't do it at all and prefer to consume animals, are thinking about themselves. So it's a selfish stance to say I'm going to eat meat because I won't make the choice for what goes on my plate. And but whereas if you are more empathetic and you have you take a broader worldview, uh, all our choices have effects on each other. And thinking about who is on your plate and how it affects the other and the world at large, I think is a positive change that once it happens in a person can have. I think everyone making the collective action to abstain from unnecessarily exploiting animals, that collective action has the greatest potential to address so many global challenges that we're facing today, which are causing conflicts. And I would love to hear other ideas if you guys have them. Maybe there's something else I just even completely overlooked. But I think this consumption of, or this exploitation of other creatures, is it's insidious. It's something that goes very deep, and it's not just about food. So yeah, let me know what you think. I'm really convinced on this that world peace is actually achievable, and that, or global peace, whatever you want to call it, is achievable, but that moving towards a plant-based, and I don't want to say plant-based, I want to say vegan, because it's something that comes from the heart. A vegan attitude, or pro-animal attitude, is like one of the biggest steps, if not the biggest step, that everyone can do in their individual life. The easiest one also, right? And that has benefits, and that's what everyone can do towards this better future. Yeah, take care. See you in the next one. Bye.